Be a better camera, so.
Good morning. Welcome. Hope you're doing well this morning. Please, there's some sheets in front of you. Just take one of each. And this one is for the knitting assessment. I've printed it on yellow and white paper. I prefer using this one as well. Just want to run through the health and safety. Please make sure that you kindly make sure that your coats are behind your chairs and that your bag underneath the table so that no one trips over. This will prevent tripping hazard. The boring stuff is over with. Let's get on to some ground rules, please. Please make sure the mobile phones are silent for it to be used for the video activity that I'm about to do soon. So you can work on your own pace and show respect towards each other and courtesy towards each other, please. Is that okay, everybody?
Yes.
We're happy with that? Fantastic. I'm just going to pin it right here. Just remind us of the ground rules. Okay, so that's up there. Fantastic. Okay. By the end of the session, my learning outcome, this is my learning outcome. I expect all users to be able to understand the principle of knitting. All users to understand the principle of knitting. So I just put here, understand knitting. Some to demonstrate in practice how to create a knit stitch for some. How to create a knit stitch. And lastly, for you to finish the first line of stitches. That will be about maybe 3 rows. First line of stitches. Could you also all take a knitting needle and wool as well, please? Each, please. One. Choose whatever colour you want. Just take one each, please. Knitting needle. Okay, fantastic. Okay, so moving on now. So let's give a brief history of knitting. So the oldest knitted artifacts are socks from Egypt, dating back from the 11th century. They are very fine gauge done with complex color work, and some have a short row heel, which necessitates to the pearl stitch. That was the first pearl stitch. Early pieces having a knitted or crocheted appearance having been shown to be made with other techniques such as nail binding. That was the first form of knitting. It's called nail binding technique, which is a technique of making fabric by creating multiple loops with a single needle and thread, much like sewing. Most histories of knitting place its origin somewhere in the Middle East, and and it spread to Europe by Mediterranean trade routes, and later went to America through the European colonization. So that's a bit of the history of knitting. On the first sheet, I'll give you the grey background. You got some vocabulary in terms of things, so you can also, as I go through the session, you can have a look at the vocabulary in terms that I use, and please feel free to stop me and answer any questions. And I'll happy to answer any questions that I'll happily answer. Okay. So let's look at the video activity now, just a short session. And this is how to cast on. So you guys got your knitting? Are you guys ready? Just get your board. You got a question?
Would you like us to follow what they're doing? Or
yes, please. Follow the session as I play. Okay. Follow it. But later you can also follow it in your own pace again on your mobile phone device as well, please. Okay, you guys ready?
Hi YouTube knitters, so today I'll be doing a video on how to cast on, and I did make a video on this in the past. However, my older videos are pretty poor quality, the lighting was bad, it was blurry, and there was a lot of weird background noise, so I decided to refilm a lot of my basic tutorials, and hopefully they'll be more helpful. This one will be about casting on, which is the first step of any knitting project. No matter if you're doing a simple one or a more complicated project, you have to cast on to get the yarn onto the knitting needle. So it's one of the most important and basic things you need to know for knitting. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so we're just going to start off with a little bit of terminology. This will be referred to as the ball end of the yarn, since it's the side where the yarn connects to the ball of yarn, and this will be referred to as the tail end of the yarn. So basically when you are casting on, you want to have the ball end of the yarn to your right and then the tail end of your yarn to your left. One of the first things you want to do before you make the slip knot is to determine how long of a tail you need to keep. So a general rule of thumb that I like to follow is to have at least 1 inch per stitch that you need to cast on, and that's pretty generous, but I'd rather have more left on the tail end and be able to snip it off or weave it in to your work when you're done, rather than to kind of run out when you're already casting on. So I always like to be a little bit more generous. So for example, if your work calls for you to cast on 10 stitches, I would have at least 10 inches of the tail, and then determine where to make your slip knot. So to make the slip knot, it's very simple. Basically, you take the tail end of the yarn and you want to have that lay over the ball end of the yarn, just like that. And then you let the loop fall forward.
Okay, no problem. You can
is it okay if I
you can show, yeah, I was just going to say. Do you want to do that again? Are you okay there, Miss Angie? Okay, there's no issue. Have you got it there? Got it? Brilliant. You know about yourself, Mister?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, Michelle, okay, Michelle, you can do a bit more advanced with your knitting. You can have a look at patterns, pattern reading on your mobile device. Pattern reading. Too long.
So would you like to cast on first, or just look
Yeah,
at
cast on first.
Our planet never ceases to amaze us. The best is always waiting to be discovered. Every corner, height.
Hi everybody, welcome to my very first one. Some really big tutorials. I'm going to be using some nice big chunky yarn, nice super long. First step of any knitting to get the yarn knitting. So let's go ahead and get started. When you are casting on, keep. So a general rule of thumb that I like to follow is to have at least 1 inch per stitch that you need to cast on, and that's pretty generous, but I'd rather have more left on the tail end and be able to snip it off or weave it in to your work when you're done, rather than to kind of run out when you're already casting on. So I always like to be a little bit more generous. So for example, on 10 stitches, I would have at least 10 inches of the tail, and then determine where to make your slip knot. So to make the slip knot, it's very simple. Basically, you take the tail end of the yarn and you want to have that lay over the ball end of the yarn, just like that. And then you let the loop fall forward. And then you take the ball end of the yarn here and you pull it through like that. And you just tighten it. And here you go, you have a slip knot. And for the cast on, you only need one knitting needle for the method that I'm showing you, which is the long tail cast on using the thumb method. So basically, you take the needle and you put it right in through the loop, and you want to tighten it, not too tight, but just enough so there's not much space here. So I'm going to go really slow just so I can show you how I like to hold the needles when I'm casting on. Of course, you can go with whatever method is most comfortable for you, but if you're just starting out, hopefully this tutorial will be of a great help. And I just really want to stress how important it is to practice with knitting, because obviously your fingers are not used to these knitting movements and motions, but once you practice and get the hang of it, it really becomes muscle memory. So without further ado, here we go. Here's the slip knot, the first stitch. This does count as stitch number 1 of the cast on, so I did get a lot of questions in my previous video about that, but this will count as stitch number 1. So to cast on the next stitch, what you want to do is take the tail end of your yarn and hold it in your left hand. And basically, I like to use these 4 fingers to kind of grab the end, like this. And then I use my thumb, and I put my thumb and wrap the yarn around just like that. And what you want to do is take your needle and put it through this loop. And don't let go of the end yet. So right here, take these 2 fingers and hold on to your needle just like that, and then with your right hand you take the ball end of the yarn and you wrap it around the needle like this. And the next step is taking this loop and pulling it over the needle just like that, and then let go of it and tug on the tail end of the yarn, and then you kind of just tighten it a little bit like that. So basically, you're going to continue casting on stitches until you have the number of stitches that your pattern calls for. So I'm just going to show you a few more stitches just so you can kind of get the hang of it. So again, what you want to do is hold the needle.
Okay. Well, I'll give you the video link, and then you can explore a little bit more later how to cast on. But I'll give you the video link, definitely. I've got a link now, actually. It's Purlin, P-U-R-L-L-I-N, purlinknitting.com.
P-U-R-L-L-I-N.com.
I-N.com. Purlin knitting.
Yes.
Okay. So here's just a quick assessment that you guys have got on your thing. And the first question is, which of the following was one of the most common knitting materials in the first 405 years of knitting history? So, which you just select one of the options.
Just carry on, yeah?
Yeah, just get, yeah. Okay. So then, we all good with the questions? Or?
Yeah.
Okay, so the answer for the first one, question 1 is silk. Question 2, it was C, the stitches of the needle second to the row. Question 3 is pearl. Question 4 is casting on. Okay, so how many?
I've done well, I guess.
So you got them all right, you got them all right.
Yes.
Yeah, you got them all.
She missed one.
Just one. Oh, fantastic. That's so perfect. That's very good. Very good. Well done. Give yourself a clap, right? So very well. So this the business our learning now comes. We most of you understand knitting, the principle of knitting, and some know how to create a knit stitch. And a few understand the first line of stitches, but most of you understand the principle of knitting, which is my main objective. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That's the really hard, right? It's just, that's what I'm interested in.